ADHD, a non-medical treatment for ADHD. I'm going to talk about what some of the very impressive doctors I've been speaking to off late, one of which is Dr. Amen, Dr. Daniel Amen, who does these incredible scans looking at the brain when different substances are being exposed to the brain, like alcohol, like caffeine, marijuana, and seeing what's actually happening in the brain in terms of the activity. So I'll be showing some clips from him on the subject of non-medical treatment for ADHD. He's a psychiatrist. And I also was attending the New York Integrative Healthcare Symposium today, where I spoke to two psychiatrists, one talking very much about ADHD and non-structured therapy for ADHD, and how structure is actually can be a problem for ADHD kids. Too much structure isn't always a good thing. I often wonder if I have this problem. I used to struggle a lot. I couldn't concentrate at all when I was in elementary school. And the only way I got through high school was actually studying myself, setting myself aside, because I was just getting attacked by teachers because I could not focus in the classroom. They'd ask me a question, I'd be a deer in the headlights, and I'd have other kids laughing at me. It was traumatic. I still have memories of that. But I wasn't stupid, though I was made to feel like I was stupid. But anyway, I didn't end up a total failure. I'm here, I'm speaking to you and interviewing some very high profile doctors, and doing a reasonable job of it, I think. You can let me know. But first of all, I'll play a clip from Dr. Daniel Amen on the screen behind me. He said one of the interesting things he talks about, and his daughter has ADHD, so this is a close to home issue for him. The fact that there's actually 7 types of ADHD that he writes about in his book. And medication, I'm not saying medication isn't a valid option for some people. This is totally a valid option, but he says it's not a valid option for everyone. And in some cases, it can actually make ADHD worse. And this is what he has to say on that topic.
And for the last 33 years, we've been looking at the brain, and I have 30,000 people who have ADD or ADHD of one form or another. And the big lesson early on is it's not one thing. A lot of people are diagnosed with it. Some get better with typical ADHD medications, but many people, those medications actually make them worse. And so we have to stop thinking of psychiatric disorders as single or simple disorders like ADHD or depression or OCD or post-traumatic stress disorder. They all have multiple types. And I actually wrote a book about ADD called Healing ADD, See and Heal the 7 different types. And so stimulants like Adderall or Ritalin help 2 of the 7 types, but they can make 5 of the 7 types worse. And so the hallmark symptoms, what we usually see in our practice, short attention span, but not for everything. It's short attention span for regular, routine, everyday things, schoolwork, homework, paperwork, chores. The things they love, they can pay attention just fine.
Like video games, I imagine.
Like video games, which are a dopamine dump. So Adderall works by increasing the availability of dopamine. That's how video games work. That's how social media works. That's how drugs work. And also distractibility, disorganization, procrastination. They don't do things until someone's mad at them to get it done. And impulse control issues. And ADHD is not a disorder of the moment, right? All of us have a little bit in us, especially when we didn't sleep well or we're overwhelmed. It's the
Yeah, I mean, like the issue of focus, of concentration, right? I mean, this is central to ADHD. You lack the ability to concentrate, but this isn't just limited to ADHD. This is widespread in relation to many mental health conditions. And I spoke to Dr. Austin Perlmutter, who's actually an internal medicine doctor, and looking at the metabolic factors that go into mental health. And actually, interestingly, I mean, we know about the Nun study that looked at Alzheimer's as a factor in terms of engagement in the mind. But this isn't just about degenerative brain diseases. It's not just about neurodegeneration, this is also about mental health. If you can engage the mind, and the nun study, to sum that up quickly, this goes back to the 1990s. They, they did this study on Catholic nuns, looking at them across the lifespan. And they found that those who learned a language, who learned actually 4 languages or more, had a significantly greater risk of developing Alzheimer's later in life than those who did not, or learned less than 4 languages in a lifetime. Also, those who showed an academic potential early in life when they were undertaking their tests to become a nun and showed proficiency in that, those were also less likely to develop Alzheimer's later in life. So the learning of this was that if you're engaging the mind, if you're keeping the mind active, if you're challenging the mind, what I would call resistance training for the mind, you're less likely to suffer neurodegeneration. You're expanding those neural pathways in a positive direction, and that's a protective factor. It turns out this is also potentially a protective factor against mental health problems, like depression. It's perhaps a barrier to getting trauma. One of the doctors I spoke to was a heart surgeon who was in Vietnam. He was in like the hottest spots of the Vietnam War. He went to Khe Sanh, where there was artillery going off. He's performing surgery in the middle of Khe Sanh, one of the hottest spots of the Vietnam War. There's cannons firing, and he's trying to save lives. The reason he said he thinks he didn't get PTSD was because he was so well trained in his job, and he could perform his job saving people's lives to an expert level of proficiency. And he was achieving his purpose while he was there, saving people's lives. And that's what he attributes as a protective factor that prevented him from getting trauma. So there's a real connection across these things, actually across from Alzheimer's all the way to PTSD. And focus is a really central part of this. The next clip, speaking of focus, I'll play from Dr. Daniel Amen. He's talking about, often, quite surprisingly, ADHD is being diagnosed when it turns out the kids don't actually have ADHD, but there is something they're engaging in that is leading them to display that lack of attention, and quite surprising to listen to. This clip just goes for about a minute and a half. Here, let's have a listen to this.
To focus.
Well, when you sleep, your brain cleans and washes itself. And if you don't get enough sleep, so 7.5 hours for adults, then trash builds up. And it's much harder to focus. I know when I cross time zones, or I try never to take a red eye, but if I do, I'm not making a big decision the next day, because I'm not going to be thinking as well as when I get great sleep. When you don't sleep well, it actually turns off 700 health promoting genes in your body, which is a very bad thing, and you won't have good blood flow to your brain. So sleep is absolutely essential, which means you have to take your children's gadgets from them. Do not let them have devices in their bedrooms, because they were made to be addictive. I believe purposefully made for mind share. They want as much of your child's mind and your mind as possible. And so at night it's critical to turn them off. I can't tell you the number of patients I have where the parents think the child has ADD, but when we figure it out, they don't really have ADD. They're sleep deprived because they've been playing with their devices in the middle of the night.
Yeah, it's
Something I can definitely attest to. I mean, my brain is a little bit fried at the moment. I got limited sleep last night, but I did basically 4 interviews today that were very long and very, I'm speaking to people speaking in depth about different psychiatric issues and metabolic issues. I've got to be very focused. I think I kind of got through it okay, but you definitely suffer a lack of concentration, with not getting adequate sleep. It's been great to be with you, and thank you for tuning in on this Friday night. You can find my full videos. Do a search for me, Brendon Fallon at Vital Signs. Email address behind me, cvitalsigns@gmail.com. Leave a comment. Maybe you've had your own experience. What have you found that is helpful in terms of sharpening focus for ADHD? What has been helpful in helping your kids deal with this problem? I'd be interested to know. Leave a comment. Tell me what you think. Thanks very much for tuning in. I'm Brendan Fallon.